Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. COVID 19 has induced perils to health globally. But not only health, it has also thrown a spanner into the giant wheel of economy and has brought it to a halt. While doctors and scientists are burning the midnight oil to come up with a vaccination plan to restore the health, there remains a question looming at large. What would be the restorative plan for global economies? Many students and recent graduates are confused and disarrayed about how would industries fare in wake of COVID-19. Some industries would certainly be affected more than the others. For instance, travel and hospitality. But what does it imply for people, the students who are graduating or who are going to pursue their careers as pilots? To answer some of these burning questions, I am being joined by eminent panelists, and I'd like to introduce them to you. First of all, we have Mr. Deepak, who has 11 years of rich, wide experience in consulting and product operations. He is currently based out of Dublin and heads outsourcing operations for an internet giant. Next on panel, we have Ms. Rinki, who also have 11 years of experience in technology and product operations. She's also based out of Dublin and working for an internet giant. Next, we also have Ms. Prachi, who have 9 years of experience spanning across e-commerce, telecom, and payments technology across the globe. And she'll be able to talk through. She has an avid interest in new technologies, and she will certainly like to share how things will change and shape up in wake of COVID for technology companies. And last but certainly not the least, we have Ms. Anshul, who is a professional chartered accountant and a graduate from LSR. She worked for a major FMCG giant, and currently she is preparing for competitive examination. Without further ado, straight from the bat, I like to get this discussion started by talking about companies that have been impacted in wake of COVID-19. Some companies are seeing decline, and this may not last. This may not last for a short while. It might be there for a good. While other companies, for instance, online education, are the ones who have played it to their advantage and are rising in wake of COVID or in face of COVID-19. So let me start by taking Mr. Deepak's opinion on what companies do you see or what industries do you see would decline in wake of COVID-19, and what companies or industries you see will rise post-COVID. Over to you, Mr. Deepak.
Thanks, Ashish, for the introductions. I think as far as the impact of COVID goes, we're getting into a recessionary environment of sorts. So I would believe every industry is going to get impacted negatively. There's going to be reduced consumer demand, which is going to result in most of the companies declining. You could probably see a very temporary surge in a few companies, but in the short to medium term, I do see a drop in revenue for most companies. Now, obviously, because you spoke about some companies that could see a surge, the only ones that come to my mind could include some of the companies that provide e-services. They're probably going to see new users who rely on their services. It could be back to the basics. So some of the institutes that focus on education or agriculture, for that matter, could see some sort of a surge. Otherwise, from what I see, there are few companies in the entertainment sector or the gaming sector that are seeing some improvement in their numbers. But largely, I think we should see a drop in the near term. Hopefully, things will pick up and recover in the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak. Very relevant points. Actually, no industry would be immune to recession. Even if companies are not directly impacted, they'll be indirectly impacted as their consumer base suffer or face recession, which restricts our spending pattern, which restricts our buying pattern. So in some way, short term or long term, companies will feel the impact of this recession. Yes, certainly some companies are on the rise, but in a way, the consumer, the end customers, everyone is impacted by recession. So yeah, I would like to move on to hear the opinion of Ms. Rinky on the same.
Yeah, I think sharing the same sentiment, right, that we have, I think it's a no-brainer that like we're pretty much getting into a recessionary situation, and we will see that like something similar to 2008 maybe like resurface right now, and maybe in a more stronger magnitude, right? So I think maybe just alluding to what we've been discussing, I definitely feel like from the standpoint of companies that will see growth, I think one of the companies one of the sector that I can think of is really online education, right? Remote learning, for example, I think will be one of the industries that's bound to benefit from benefit from the current situation, purely because I think based on the discussions that have been going on related to COVID, looks like it's a situation that's not temporary, and we don't know when it could resurface back again. So essentially, like with parents being very, very cautious with their kids, I think remote learning is definitely there to stay. And any industry which is allied or like subsidiary or kind of catering to this industry, I think that those industries will continue to like, if not grow, at least sustain. And I think the second trend that we are seeing in this COVID situation, right, which is unprecedented, is about companies experimenting with work from home. There's always been discussion about work from home and how cost effective that could be, but I think this is the time where companies have actually put this into test, and they are not seeing too much of an impact, which essentially means that as a result of this, we could see a lot more increase in like devices being manufactured. For example, laptops, like there's been a surge in demand for laptops. With remote learning going on, there's been a surge in demand for tablets as well. So I think those industries like which manufacture laptops or tablets could see a small spike in the short term. Specifically talking about the industries which might see a decline, I think one of the industries that is subject, which could be heavily impacted in case companies take a detour in terms of their strategy of operations, would be real estate. Because if companies, even if it means that like they go back to like 30% of their workforce working from home, that would mean quite a bit of impact on the real estate. So that's one industry that I would definitely place my bets on. Talking purely from the industry that I come from, regards to advertising, I think with businesses and retailers going offline, I think advertising is definitely something which will take a back burner for now, given that it's not the primary, like the primary revenue generator for companies. But I think so that would take a hit. And then with regards to that, then there's also going to be an impact on outsourced operations, because if advertising revenue takes a hit, like any of the operations supporting that might have an impact as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Rinky. I think it shaped the discussion in the very, very order of how compartmentalized we can see growth. So growth and decline both will be short-term and long-term. When we talk about growth in short-term, as Rinky pointed out, that some of the device manufacturing, furniture manufacturing company will see a growth because there's a short-term need for the near future for their devices, for the furniture. But some companies will also have a long-term growth or a long-term trend. For instance, online education, which have been impacted for good. Same way, decline, we will have a short-term decline as well as a long-term decline. Short-term decline may be there pertinent to digital advertising, but long-term decline might be there for travel, tourism industry, given the trends, the corporate and the leisure travel will be impacted. But I'll pass it on to Ms. Prachi to add her opinion to the same thought.
Hey, hi. So I think I share the same sentiment that, there will be a lot of spike in certain industry and a lot of decline in certain. Given that technology touches us in every space right now, I think there are certain technology companies which are going to benefit a lot from this. For example, we see that, Amazon, Walmart, Flipkart, because of catering to online services for essentials. So, I mean, it's been I think 3 months since I've gone out and shopped. So I've been doing online shopping from past 3 months. So I think this trend is going to continue going forward, not just for essentials, but for non-essentials as well. So this rise might be sustained by Amazon and Walmart in the near future. So this is one sector which I see is going to see a lot of growth, at least the e-commerce online delivery. For example, I just read recently that Amazon plans to hire 1 lakh fulfillment workers in the near future. So it just comes to show that about the surge in the online orders. One more industry because of COVID is going to see definitely the health and pharma sector. Because of jobs being on decline, there's mental stress and anxiety in every one of us these days. As a result, I see that online consultation is going to be something which is going to be on the spike for the next few years, and the supporting technology definitely is going to benefit from it. So if I have to speak specifically about decline, definitely I think the most obvious answer which comes to our mind these days is travel and tourism industry. This is one of the industry which is going to have a direct impact because of the restrictions which is put in by every country for travel. But an indirect impact of this directly would be the hospitality industry as well, which includes our hotels, our restaurants, which actually rely directly on our frequent travels, foreign visitors. So that industry might be declined for a while till we get a vaccination or we feel safe to travel again.
Very true. I think unless and until there is an inoculation for COVID-19, things won't go back to the normal. And somehow some of these things will stay with us and will become the new normal. You pointed out a very valid fact. The technology companies which are disrupting in face of COVID might ride this wave and may be successful in the coming times. I'd like to hear Ms. Anshul's opinion on that. Ms. Anshul, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. Just carrying forward from what Prachi has said, I would also like to add that the travel industry has also affected the aviation sector. Given the fact that currently there's a ban on the inter-country travel across all countries, so aviation sector has been deeply impacted given the fact that some aviation companies have already declared bankruptcy. So it has put a lot of employees at risk of jobs, as well as and given the fact that Warren Buffett recently sold major airline shares, we don't know how the growth is going to be in the near future. Adding to that, the other industries that I feel would decline is the oil and gas sector, which is again related to travel. Given the fact that there's an ongoing lockdown in major countries, it has been deeply impacted because of the extremely low demand on account of the travel restrictions, and travel has been limited only for essential purposes. So given that, and which is why this low demand and the supply imbalance has led to crude oil prices turning negative for the first time. Another sector that comes to my mind which would decline, as Mr. Deepak had said, that online movies are on a rise, which I totally agree with. But on the same time, this COVID has affected traditional movies, traditional TV shows, daily soap operas, which were about to be released or which were released on account of closure of cinema halls or on account of travel restrictions where people are not able to shoot. So that industry will also have a major impact. Coming to the growth sector, I would like to specifically talk about the financial services sector, which comprises of the banking, insurance, and the digital payment sector. Banking, given the fact there's a growing importance of financial inclusion, a complete reliance by governments to direct benefit transfers for physical measures, I feel people are not being able to benefit on account of lack of bank accounts, which will definitely gear up demand for banking sector. Second would be the insurance sector, especially the health and term insurance, given the fact there's a spike in the numbers of coronavirus, there's a growing risk of the virus spreading at a very fast rate, and the rising cost of healthcare treatments in the private hospitals. And given the fact that the number of deaths have gone down, because of the number of rising cases. The third thing would be the digital payment sector. Obviously, as pointed out by the other panel members, that there's a spike in the e-services. So digital payment would also get a boost because it's being used in every.
Thank you, Ms. Anshul. I really like the point that you drew out, that in same space, few industries could be benefiting or could be on the rise, while at the same time, some companies might be on the decline. While Netflix is seeing a surge, at the same time, the conventional theater, the soap operas, which have not revolutionized or which have not innovated, are going to have a setback. Overall, when I see and when I hear all the panel members, there would be trends which will dictate how the long term and short term will face up. Some companies will be affected only in the short term, some companies will be affected in the long term, and it's both for the pros and the cons. So thank you again. It's a good time to transition to the topic which our listeners would be very interested in. What would be the companies that will be hiring in the short term, and what would be the companies that will be hiring or that will be hiring for the long term? This will
Companies that have placed bets on their long-term strategy, and they'd want to continue hiring in those spaces. Like let's say some of these technology companies that are into investing into AI or machine learning, or some of the other technology improvements that they hope to generate, right? So those are companies that will hire. Largely, it is going to be some of these really big behemoths in the form of Amazon, Google, Microsoft, who might be able to ignore the impact of COVID and continue hiring to really reap the benefits in the long term, right? But short term, I'd be very cautious. One trend that could come up in the near future is some companies being very interested in hiring new graduates or freshers, because that's a way you cut costs, right? People want to get rid of their senior management or middle management and then hire for a fresher perspective. So that is some hope for people who are coming out of college. But largely, I think companies are going to be very cautious going forward for the near future at least.
Right. Thank you, Deepak. You brought a very beautiful point that companies will continue to hire or will hire who have the long-term vision or long-term in the sight. Some companies don't want to miss the forest for the trees. At the same time, it will be interesting to know, our MBA graduates who are seeing companies listing campus. What is the advice for them as to what should be their target, how they can get their foot in the door? To hear more on that, I like to hear Winky's opinion.
Yes, I think specifically talking about MBA graduates, right? I mean, let's call it out very clearly. I think there are big loans that people have taken, right? Like to get into B schools and make sure that, they complete their education. I would say that, in the short term, my advice to the MBA graduates would be, because no institute today can guarantee 100% placement. I would say just go and grab whatever opportunities available in the market. Nothing is too big or too small at this point in time. So just hang on, just try to find any job, even if it's closely related to the space that you can, that you would like to be in. And I think that would be my suggestion for now. Hang in there. I think these are unprecedented times. But the thing is, this is not the first time, right? Way back in 2008 when we saw a recession, we do know that, people who graduated those years, they hung on to their jobs, whatever they could manage to get. But I think over the long term, right, a couple of years later, once the economy opens, everything is going to stabilize, things are going to get back to normalcy. And what I would also say is, while you continue to do that, I think let's not lose focus of upskilling, because I think that's going to be imperative as whenever the economy opens up, there's going to be massive competition. And if you cater to whatever is the growing trend, I think that's definitely going to be, a big morale booster. So bottom line, take whatever is available at the moment, continue to upskill yourself. These are good times to, do online courses, educations, all the top-notch universities today offer different courses, very good courses which are certified and recognized. Continue to invest in yourself. And I think that's going to be key at this point in time, according to me. And hold on, and I think just to give you some stats around in 2008 when there was a recession. I do know that, like, I was in college pretty much at the same time, so I can give you what happened. I know that, like, there were my seniors, like, who didn't get jobs when they passed out, but I do know that everybody is in a very comfortable space today, doing, like, pretty much what they would have done in case there was no recession back then. And I know that, like, there are some of them already leading companies and stuff. So I think there's nothing to worry about. These trends keep happening, but I think it's about just making sure that, like, we ride the wave and make the most out of it by upskilling ourselves.
Thank you, Rinki. That was great hope to our listeners. Yes, recession is not a new trend. It might be a new wave or a new form in terms of COVID-19, but we have seen and we have some important lessons to draw out of our past experiences. It's very important to hang in there and bounce back once the market is up and running. I'll now look to Ms. Prachi's opinion on those lines.
Thanks, Ashish. I think I share the same sentiment as Rinki had shared, that we are going to see a new normal in this phase of recession. It's not going to be as we had anticipated the normal life. The companies are going to be cautious of hiring, and major giants are going to hire, but it's going to be at a limited pace, not at the pace which we were seeing before the COVID. And one of the I think companies which are impacted are startups. So I see a lot of, in my LinkedIn, I see a lot of posts where people are saying that, I got an offer from this startup, but now that they are out of funds, I'm looking out for job again. So I think at this time, jobs are going to be less in the market, but as was suggested by the panelist Rinki, that just, grab whatever you can right now and just learn, invest in yourself, get upskilled in the emerging technologies like big data, AI, ML. There'll be time when the jobs open up and these technologies are going to play a very important role. So if you are upskilled there, I'm definitely sure that in 1 or 2 years things are going to become super good for you and you're going to be placed very well in the near future.
Thank you, Prachi. That was a great build-up. I would like to move on to Anshul now, who's the fresh among the whole panel, recent graduate. I think, Anshul, what would be your advice to graduates who are going to graduate this year or in the coming days? What will be your advice for them for the coming times, for these challenging times?
Yeah, so taking forward, I believe the trends in workforce that we're seeing currently are both in demand for the unskilled sector as well as the skilled sector. In the unskilled sector, I see that the gig economy has got a great boost post the lockdown and post the COVID, where there's a great demand for logistic support, delivery services by e-commerce companies, by logistics companies, and who we see are definitely hiring also. And some companies that come to my mind are Flipkart and Amazon. At the same time, we see highly skilled workers that are being required, say, in the education sector. Given that we have completely shifted our education sector from the offline to the online for the short term. And we see a spike in the online courses, and we see definite hiring from education startups like, Byju's or Coursera, who are looking for teachers, who are looking for content, who are looking for better content using technology to, spread across so that, schools one day might become irrelevant. We are not sure. But coming back to my sphere, which is the financial services, currently what I see is giants like, PwC, KPMG have, in the short term, called for a fees higher. But I am sure in the long term, the trend is going to reverse because these services are going to be in great demand because businesses are in stress and in huge stress. They are in financial stress, they are in economic stress. They don't know because they demand when will the production, resume to be normal. So they are looking for advice, they are looking for sources of finances, they are looking for consulting. So I think these services will definitely get a boost. So I would advise people who have, in the commerce sector, who are, pursuing commerce or who are pursuing MBA. I think this would be a great sector in the future, in the long term, which will see great demand. And I already see companies like, banks like, ICICI City already hiring. So I think there's good scope for finance graduates. So for people who are pursuing MBA, who are pursuing CAs, there's a lot of demand. There will be a lot of demand in the long term, maybe in the short term. There is a freeze higher, but I'm sure the trend will be.
Great. Thank you, Anshul. I think you gave in hope for the both skilled and unskilled sector. And I think I really like the trends that you have drawn out of the recent readings in terms of online sector or the investment that Warren Buffett is making, and how those trends are dictating what future has in store for us. Overall, the key takeaway from listening to all the panel members, I would say it's very important for now to get your foot in the door and just keep the wolf from the door. And second, one can't go wrong with upskilling oneself. These are short-term effects which will hit us, but once things look forward, or shine back, I think it will be important to be upskilled to make the most of those opportunities. Disney and Pixar were both fighting each other out in terms of animation. In 1999, Disney looked back their 10 years and they had no successful animated movie to name, while Pixar had all the credits to themselves. Disney CEO pulled everyone together and told them, guys, we have a choice. Give up and die, or pull our act together and live another day to tell this story. For our times, that instead of giving up or feeling dejected and forlornly, it's important to upskill yourself to see what future has in store and shaping yourself in that direction to make the most of it. My next question is more about what do you feel the recent graduates should be upskilling themselves towards, given the change, the trends that we see in wake of COVID? I'll Prachi on the same.
Hey, thanks, Ashish. If I have to talk, specifically on the technology sector, so I think it's very important at this point to be a problem solver, because you have a different and varied problem these days, and it's very, very important that you start thinking logically, analytically. It's very important. I mean, company doesn't want somebody who can just write a code which thousands of people can do, but how do you think differently is going to actually give you a extra edge to get the job. And talking about like upskilling yourself in technologies, I see that big data, AI, ML, they're going to play a major role in the upcoming future. So I think these are good technologies wherein people can actually invest their time to upskill themselves.
Great. Thank you, Prachi. It's true. The future would be defined by AI and ML, and it is the buzzword that no meeting goes by where this doesn't come up whenever companies are talking about their long-term strategy. Being educated on that front, being in the roots of that front won't harm you for sure. That's a very valid point for our listeners. I'll move on to Anshul to hear her thoughts on it.
Yeah, right. Taking it forward. So as I've heard the other panelist members, one thing I get is that automation is definitely a future, and which I totally agree with. What only I would just like to add to that is automation might not be a short-term future. Given the fact that companies are going through a major financial crunch and we're going through a recessionary phase, it's definitely a long-term vision of many companies and they're working towards it. But in the near term, I don't think a lot of jobs might go irrelevant because of the new automation. So right now, what we need to focus on is our basic skills that we have currently, because a lot of new skill sets also come along with the job that you do and on the job. So that's very important. But coming specifically to the financial sector, automation is generally perceived that in the future it comes in terms of taxation, in terms of new software, in terms of accounting, where businesses are heavily investing in their ERP systems, which has enabled people to work from home as well, and help them in their financial reporting and meeting their tax obligations as well. At the same time, in terms of audit, if I see there are a lot of data analytics tools which will be employed because given the fact that companies are getting bigger every day, there's a huge set of data that needs to be analyzed. So auditors have to be very efficient in those terms. So I feel skills like data analytics, problem solving, like Prachi has said, or number crunching, these abilities will never go irrelevant. I think it will just change with the changing tech. And so what is more important right now is to be open-minded about these new technologies, because like mentioned, when new technologies come in, there is definitely a lot of jobs, but there's also new jobs being created. So I think it's more important to be positive, more important to stay updated with the current affairs, with what is going on in your sector, and and a lot of professional journals, a lot of news. If you updated with the news, it will really help you. So I think more important is to be open-minded right now, be updated, and continuing to be the best at what you do.
Very valid. And I think this thought has reverberated throughout the interview. Not every job will go obscure. All jobs will remain relevant. Some will be in higher demand than the others, that's for sure. At the same time, it's important that you don't give up hope. And it's a very important message that all panel members have been driving home for our audience members. I would like to thank you all for joining and sharing your eminent opinion on this hot burning topic. I'll also like to summarize few of the things which I learned with your opinion. One is the scale of impact would vary. It could be high and low depending on the industry you are in, and the span of impact may also vary. It could be a short term or a long term. So this discernment, judgment would be very important in which area you are. Making or jumping, whether it's important or not, at this point of time would be a call which audience member will have to make. Automation, ML and AI are some of these jobs which are going to be hot and will be remaining there for future because every company is going to invest in them. But at the same time, not all jobs will go obscure. So getting that foot in the door and then staying updated would be the theme to survive this recession.